Okay, do me a favor for a second. Stop whatever you're doing, just for a moment, and listen. Really listen. What do you actually hear?
Well, if you're at home, maybe it's the low hum of a refrigerator. If you're commuting, it could be the drone of tires on pavement.
Or, and let's be honest, if you're like most of us, maybe it's the sound of a coworker explaining their weekend plans about 3 desks away. Or that buzzing light that nobody else seems to notice.
Or if you are exceedingly lucky, maybe you're hearing just silence, which, as we're about to find out, isn't really empty space at all. It's a very specific kind of biological input. But genuine silence, I mean, it's becoming an endangered species, isn't it?
It really is. And that connects to, why we're doing this deep dive today. We tend to think of sound as just stuff that happens around us. It's either entertainment, a playlist we choose, or it's an annoyance we have to endure.
Right. We treat it like wallpaper. It's just a backdrop to our lives.
Yeah.
But the research we have today suggests it's much more like a diet. It's a biological input you're consuming, whether you want to or not. And just like junk food affects your arteries, junk sound is affecting your nervous system.
That is exactly what we are unpacking today. We have this really fascinating stack of sources that treats sound not as art, but as a biological, a super driver. We're going to look at how sound physically alters your hormones, how it can change your brain structure, and even affect your health on a cellular level.
It's a pretty wild journey. We're going to go from the open plan office, which, spoiler alert, is a physiological disaster zone, all the way to the electromagnetic heartbeat of the Earth itself.
Yeah, we've got workplace psychology reports from Ecofon on how noise just kills productivity. We have clinical neuroscience editorials on music therapy. We've got medical reviews on Om chanting and the vagus nerve, and even technical reports on something called the Schumann resonance.
It's a diverse mix, but the thread connecting them all is, I think, really clear. Sound is an invisible architect. It is either building or dismantling your mental state right now.
So let's start with the bad news. Let's talk about the place where most of us spend our days and where our sanity often goes to die, the office.
The dreaded open plan, the layout that was designed for collaboration, but is actually just perfect for distraction.
I was looking at this Ecofun report on noise impact, and honestly, it felt so validating. It's like it justifies every single complaint I've ever had about working in a cubicle farm. They call noise the #1 cause of workplace dissatisfaction.
And by a huge margin, 70% of people are dissatisfied with noise levels. But we need to be really clear here. It's not just about being annoyed. It's not, I don't like this. It's about the cost, the actual cost of that annoyance.
Okay, this is the stat that blew my mind. The Leesman Index. They found that if you get interrupted by a noise, it takes an average of 25 minutes just to return to the task.
25 minutes, just let that sink in.
That just seems impossibly high. So you're saying if a phone rings nearby, I don't just lose the 30 seconds it takes to realize it's not mine.
Nope. You lose the cognitive thread. You have to completely reorient yourself to the problem you are solving. And the data shows, even after you get back to it, it takes another 8 minutes to reach the same level of deep concentration, that flow state you were in before.
So if you do the math, one loud conversation nearby, that's over 30 minutes of deep work, just torpedoed. If that happens 3 or 4 times a day.
You've effectively lost half your productive capacity. You're at your desk for 8 hours, but your brain is only really online for maybe 4.
But why are we so fragile? I mean, is it just that we lose our train of thought, or is there something like physical happening?
Oh, it's deeply physical. The report highlights that even moderate noise levels, we're talking 55 to 66 decibels, so just a bustling office, not a rock concert, that triggers the release of epinephrine.
Epinephrine?
Yeah.
Well, that's basically adrenaline, right?
Exactly. It's the stress hormone. It increases your blood pressure. It spikes your heart rate. So you're sitting there trying to write a passive-aggressive email to HR, but biologically, your body is in fight or flight mode. You are physically stressed, even if you're telling yourself you're just ignoring it.
And this creates a vicious cycle. The report mentions the Lombard reflex, which sounds like a fancy dance move or something.
Oh, the Lombard reflex is a classic. It's just that instinctive, subconscious tendency we all have to raise our voice when the background noise gets louder.
Right. So, okay, we're in the office. I'm on a call. It's noisy. So I start talking a little bit louder to be heard.
And because you're talking louder, sitting right next to you, I can't hear myself think. So now I have to raise my voice to compensate.
And then I have to talk even louder to hear my client.
And suddenly the whole room is shouting, just to maintain a baseline conversation.
Okay, yeah. That is exactly what happens. It's a complete nightmare.
It creates a feedback loop of just increasing volume and increasing stress. But here's where it gets really fascinating, psychologically. The report says that about 25% of the impact of noise is the actual physics, the sound waves hitting your ear.
Okay. So what's the other 75%?
Yeah.
Because that's the huge part of the problem.
It's perceived, it's psychological. And a massive factor there is the inability to control the sound.
Control. So that's the key variable.
Think about it. If you're at home and you turn on a loud blender to make a smoothie, it doesn't really stress you out. It's loud, sure. But why doesn't it trigger that rage? Because you initiated it, you know when it starts, and you know when it's going to end.
That makes so much sense. But in an office, the sound is just inflicted on you. You have no agency over it.
Exactly, and that lack of control creates a cortisol spike that self-inflicted noise just doesn't. It's the difference between driving a fast car and being a passenger in a car driven by a maniac.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And there's one more layer to this office hellscape I want to touch on, the speech transmission index.
Ah, yes. This is the science of why hearing a leaf blower is, annoying, but hearing someone's conversation is completely destructive to your focus.
Is it just because we're nosy?
Well, a little, but it's because we're human. The human brain is a pattern recognition machine, and its absolute favorite pattern, the one it evolved to prioritize above all else, is language. We are hardwired to decode it. If you hear a buzz, your brain eventually just files it under background noise. But if you hear words, your brain involuntarily tries to process the meaning.
It's like having a browser tab open in your brain that keeps autoplaying a video. You can't close it.
That is the perfect analogy. It just consumes cognitive load. Even if you couldn't care less about what your coworker had for lunch, your brain is still parsing the syntax and semantics of their sentence. And that's why speech privacy is such a critical issue in these open environments. It's not just about keeping secrets, it's about cognitive survival.
Okay, so that's the invisible stressor. Noise breaks us down, spikes our adrenaline, ruins our focus. It sounds bleak, but let's pivot. Let's talk about the builder. Let's talk about music.
Yes, let's get some serotonin back into this conversation.
We often think of music as just, entertainment, something to pass the time. But the neuroscience sources, especially that editorial from Thought and his team, suggest it's much more like a drug.
It absolutely is. They're looking at something called NMT, neurologic music therapy. And this isn't just listening to nice tunes to feel happy. This is clinical. And the big takeaway here is that the brain doesn't just enjoy music. It processes music almost exactly like it processes a complex language.
Right. They mentioned that music and language actually share the same neural architecture.
Yes, Broca's area and Wernicke's area. These are the parts of the brain responsible for speech production and, comprehension.
And this is where the whole rehab aspect comes in. I found this part incredibly moving. They talk about stroke victims who have aphasia. They've lost the ability to speak.
Right, and imagine how terrifying that must be. You have the thought, but you just can't form the word. The damage might be in the specific neural pathway for spoken language. It's like a bridge has been washed out by the stroke.
But the music pathway,
Yeah,
it's still there.
exactly. Because music uses those same general areas, but it accesses them through a different road, if you will, therapists can use melody to actually bypass the damage.
So wait, a patient who can't say the sentence, "I am hungry," might be able to sing it.
Yes. And it's not just a parlor trick. By singing it over and over, they can essentially rewire the brain, building a new bridge until they can speak the words without the melody. It's called melodic intonation therapy.
That's incredible. It's literally hacking the brain's operating system to, code a workaround.
It is. And it's not just speech. They use NMT for gait rehabilitation, helping people walk again after a stroke or with Parkinson's.
How does music help you walk? I mean, I walk better with a good beat, but this sounds more medical than that.
It's all about rhythm. Parkinson's often affects the internal starter motor for movement. Patients know they want to move, but the signal just doesn't fire. Rhythm provides an external timekeeper for the brain. It bypasses the damaged motor pathways and gives the brain a beat to latch onto.
So the beat acts as sort of a prosthetic pacemaker for movement.
Effectively, yes. It stimulates motor control in a way that, simple verbal instruction just can't.
And then, of course, there's the chemistry. We have to talk about the dopamine,
Oh, the dopamine hits. The study mentioned the mesolimbic pathway.
which is just a fancy term for the reward system, right?
Correct. When you listen to music that you find pleasurable, it triggers a release of dopamine in the nucleus accumbens. This is the exact same part of the brain that lights up for food, for sex, or for addictive drugs.
So when you get the chills from a great song, that feeling of frisson, That's not just an emotional metaphor. That is a literal chemical event.
A very potent one. And interestingly, it works both ways. Pleasant music increases serotonin, which regulates your mood, but the sources note that unpleasant, chaotic, or discordant music actually reduces serotonin.
So you can chemically depress yourself with a bad playlist.
You absolutely can, which brings us back to that whole idea of a sound diet. You wouldn't eat rotten food and expect to feel good. So why do we listen to rotten sounds?
That is a great point. Okay, so we've gone from the stressful office to the healing concert hall. Now,
Whoa.
I want to go somewhere a little more out there.
I have a feeling I know where you're going with this.
We need to talk about sound baths and chanting. And look, I'll be honest. Usually when someone brings this up, my eyes kind of glaze over. It feels very expensive yoga retreat. A bit woo-woo. But you're the expert here. Is there actual data, or is this all just placebo?
Skepticism is healthy, but in this case, the data is weirdly compelling. We're looking at a study by Goldsby and colleagues. Now, it was published in a journal called Religions, which might raise an eyebrow, but the methodology was all about physiological and psychological outcomes. They were looking at sound healing using Tibetan singing bowls.
Right, those are the metal bowls you strike or rub, and they make that long, resonating hum. So the study had 62 participants, and they found a significant correlation between the sound bath and, well, feeling better.
Specifically, they measured spiritual well-being against tension and depression, and they found that as the well-being scores went up, tension and depression scores went down significantly.
But here's where it got really interesting for me. The age breakdown. The results weren't the same for everybody.
No, they weren't at all. For participants aged 31 to 40, the strongest effect was a reduction in depression. But for the 51 to 60 age group, the strongest relief was from tension.
I feel like that tells a really profound story about the different stages of life, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, think about your 30s. Those are often the career-building years, maybe starting a family, the grind. The burden can feel heavy, isolating, kind of depressive. It's an internal weight.
Versus your 50s?
The 50s might be more about the accumulated physical stakes, the high-pressure roles, the physiological wear and tear. That manifests as tension. It's tighter, more brittle.
And the sound vibrations seem to address the specific pain point of that life stage. But how? I mean, really, how does that work? Is it just relaxing, like, oh, nice noise, I feel calm? Or is there a biological mechanism?
For that, we have to turn to the Bongard's review on the mantra. This is what bridges the gap between ritual and physiology. They argue it's not just about the spiritual meaning of the word Om, it's about the physics of the vibration itself.
They mentioned a specific frequency, didn't they? 136.1 hertz.
Yes! They claim this is the frequency of the Earth year's 32nd octave.
Okay, you're starting to lose me. That sounds like something I'd read on a pamphlet in a crystal shop.
I know, it sounds esoteric. But ignore the cosmic label for a second and just look at the body. The physiological mechanism they describe is very concrete. It's all about the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve is having a huge moment in wellness right now.
Yeah.
But remind us what it actually does.
It's the main connector between the brain and the body. It controls the parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest mode. It's basically the opposite of that adrenaline rush we talked about in the office.
Okay. So how does chanting connect to it?
The review suggests that the vibration of chanting Om, that low internal hum physically, stimulates the auricular branches of the vagus nerve.
So by making this sound in your throat, you are literally pressing the brake pedal on your body's stress response.
Exactly. And they have fMRI studies to back this up. These studies show that chanting Om leads to a deactivation in the amygdala.
The fear center of the brain?
The fear center. It effectively helps to shut down the brain's alarm system.
I also love the breakdown of the phonetics in that report. I'd never thought about Om as 3 separate physical events.
Yeah.
Right. They explained that the A sound resonates in the abdomen, the U sound moves up into the throat and chest, and the M.
The M resonates in the nasal cavity and the skull. And this is the part that, as a scientist, I find most fascinating.
Why is that?
Because that humming M sound creates a physical vibration, an oscillation in the air inside your nasal sinuses.
And why should we care about vibrating sinuses?
Because that vibration facilitates the production of nitric oxide.
Nitric oxide, isn't that a gas?
It is, but in the body, it's a vasodilator. It opens up your blood vessels. It increases blood flow and oxygenation. So by humming that M sound, you are physically increasing circulation to your brain and body.
Wait a minute, so it's not magic, it's mechanics.
It's pure mechanics. You are using sound waves to scrub your arteries and oxygenate your brain.
So if I'm stressed at my desk, quietly humming might actually be more effective than just taking a deep breath.
Well, the vibration adds a whole other layer of physiological activation. It's like an internal massage for your nervous system.
Okay, so we've looked at sound inside the office, inside the brain, and inside the body. Now, I want to zoom way out, like planetary scale out.
Ah, the Schumann resonance.
This one sounds like straight science fiction, but we have a technical report from PadSnap Eureka that treats this as a very real, measurable phenomenon. What exactly is the Schumann resonance?
Okay, so to understand this, you have to imagine the Earth's atmosphere as a sort of giant musical instrument, like a bell, essentially.
A bell. Okay, I'm with you.
You have the surface of the Earth, which is conductive, and then way up high you have the ionosphere, which is also conductive, and the space between them acts like a cavity, or resonance chamber.
Kind of like the body of a guitar.
Exactly like that. Now, lightning is striking somewhere on Earth constantly, about 50 times every second. And every single time lightning strikes, it rings that bell. It creates these electromagnetic waves that bounce back and forth in that cavity.
And like a bell, it has a specific pitch, a fundamental frequency.
Yes, the fundamental frequency is 7.83 hertz. It's often called the heartbeat of the Earth.
7.83 hertz. That's extremely low. We can't hear that, can we?
No, human hearing stops around 20 hertz. You can't hear it, but you are bathed in it every second of your life.
So why does that number matter to a human being? I mean, just because it's there doesn't mean it affects us, right?
Right, and this is the wild connection. 7.83 hertz falls precisely within the range of human brainwaves. Specifically, it's on the border between alpha and theta waves.
Alpha and theta, refresh my memory. Those are the relaxation waves.
Exactly. Alpha is that calm, alert state-like when you're done with work but not yet asleep. Theta is deep relaxation, creativity, the very threshold of sleep.
Right.
So just think about the evolutionary implication here for a second.
Our brains evolved in a planetary environment that is constantly humming at the exact frequency of deep relaxation.
Right. It implies that we might be biologically tuned to the planet, that our brainwaves naturally want to sync up with this 7.83 hertz baseline.
And the report mentions biological mechanisms for this, how that would even work.
It does. It highlights that our pineal gland, which produces melatonin and regulates our sleep-wake cycles, is highly sensitive to electromagnetic fields. It kind of acts as a receiver.
So here's the dystopian question. If the Earth is humming at 7.83 hertz and our brains like that frequency, what happens when we surround ourselves with Wi-Fi and 5G and power lines and Bluetooth?
Well, that's the electrosmog problem. All of those technologies operate at much, much higher frequencies. The concern, and what companies like Philips are apparently researching, is that all this artificial high-frequency noise is essentially drowning out that natural low-frequency connection.
We're losing the signal.
We might be. It could be creating a disconnect. It might be a factor in why modern sleep patterns are so disrupted, or why so many of us feel this constant background hum of anxiety. We're desynchronized from the planet's natural pacemaker.
The report mentioned companies are actually building devices to try and mimic this resonance.
Yes. There are patents for devices that generate a 7.83 hertz field to try and artificially restore that connection for sleep and wellness. It's an attempt to hack our environment back to its natural state.
It's incredibly ironic, isn't it? We used to just live in nature. Now we have to buy a machine to simulate the frequency of the nature we paved over.
It is ironic, but it really underscores the mission of this whole deep dive. Sound isn't just background noise, it's a biological requirement.
So let's try to synthesize all of this, because we've covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have. We started with the disruptive, adrenaline-spiking 55 decibels of the open office, the invisible stressor that keeps us in fight or flight.
And kills our productivity for 25 minutes at a time. Then we moved to music, which hijacks our language centers and floods our reward pathways with dopamine, literally rebuilding broken brains.
Then deeper still, to the vibration of the ohm, that 136.1 hertz that physically stimulates the vagus nerve and pumps nitric oxide into our blood to lower our blood pressure.
And finally, we ended on the 7.83 hertz heartbeat of the Earth, which aligns with our own brainwaves and how our modern electrosmog might be severing that fundamental connection.
The takeaway for me is all about agency. Most of us go through life as passive recipients of sound. We just let the office noise happen to us. We let the city noise happen to us. But the science shows We need to be active curators of our soundscape.
We need to defend our auditory environment.
Absolutely. Whether that means noise-canceling headphones to block that speech privacy issue, or intentionally using rhythm to regulate your mood, or just humming to activate your vagus nerve, you have to treat sound like nutrition.
I love that. Curate your soundscape like you curate your plate.
Precisely.
Before we go, I just have one thought that's sticking with me.
Right.
We talk about how modern technology, the electrosmog, might be drowning out the Earth's natural 7.83 hertz frequency. And we talked about how humming generates internal vibration. Well, if we're living out of tune with the planet because of all this noise, could the simple act of humming be the quickest way to hack our own nervous system back into rhythm? Like, are we our own tuning forks?
That is a profound question. If the external signal is jammed, maybe the only solution left is to generate the signal from within.
Something to think about the next time you're stressed in traffic. Don't honk, just hum.
I just have to try that.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll catch you in the next one.
Stay tuned.